Hey, a good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show here with Claibs and Joe on claibsonline.com, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, powered by Graybar, and Claibs, our friends at Ameren Illinois, have a special project for us tomorrow that that we're real excited for. They approached you with it, and you accepted and said that you would do it, and then suddenly now I'm the one doing all of the work for this. It's funny how that worked out.
Well, no, it's only because I'm on the injured list and I can't participate in that. But I know you'll do a fine job. I'm anxious to see how this works out. It's just another way of Ameren showing us all the things they do, and we can actually tell them firsthand how certain things work. And once they see what we're talking about, I think they'll have greater appreciation for what the good folks at Ameren Illinois do.
So what you have me doing tomorrow morning, I am going out to one of the sites in Maryville, Illinois, for Ameren, Illinois, and for an hour or two or whatever, I'm going to be a linesman for the folks at Ameren. So if anybody in the Maryville area loses power, I'm to blame fully for any of that.
See, I don't think you'd be smart enough not to even get near a line.
I don't know what I'm in for. They have told me, so the directions that I've been given to wear long sleeves, because I'll be holding on to a wooden pole at all times, so I have to have long sleeves on. Blue jeans, and it says here in the notes, I will get sweaty and dirty. They are going to provide me with leather gloves, safety glasses, and safety gear. And Claibs, here's the thing I got to go out and buy for today, because I mean I work at a gym and I work in sports media. Those are my two jobs, so this would not be in my attire, are a pair of work boots.
I would agree with you. There's no reason for me to have a pair either.
Yeah.
Anything I need to have for work boots on, I'm probably smart enough to hire somebody who's more of a trained professional than I am. So
yeah,
it wouldn't affect me at all.
Yeah, it says here I'm going to be going up in a bucket. I'm going to be climbing a power pole, and I'm going to be working on a cross arm. I've been told that whatever equipment I'm wearing is about 40 to 60 pounds while I'm also up there as well. So, yeah, that's what my Wednesday morning is going to look like.
Can't wait.
Folks at Ameren, Illinois. So, Claibs, this, even though you kind of volunteered me into this, it has sparked another idea for me for a new segment, a new bit of content that we're going to do here on Claibs Online that I've already lined up our next one for it as well. And it's basically Dirty Jobs Claibs Online edition. You remember the show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe? Yeah. Where he would go and do stuff. So, I mean, hey, any sponsors that we have, if they would like me to come out there and see what it's like in a day in the life of that, Mungenast is going to have me come out and do some work with the mechanics out there at Mungenast.
Well, it's funny you bring this up because one of our potential sponsors, the St. Louis Zoo, is looking for someone to go and clean out the lion's cage. So I guess you're it. Yeah, so I just got an email from them, but they want us to come out and see what it's like to live in a lion's cage and take care of lions. Yeah,
so, no, that's great.
Well, it's a lot. Wait a minute, bears are also involved. So
yeah,
you can take your pick.
I mean, I run the trails out here in St. Louis and Madison County and St. Clair County a lot, and there's been reports of mountain lions and cougars out on the trail too. So, I mean, just bring on the bears and the tigers and whatever else.
You can have
at this point. Yeah,
that's why I'll just stay in the car.
Yeah, so that is talked to Jamie about it this morning, and he was all on board with it. He was like, oh yeah, we'll do tire rotations, we'll do oil changes. So again, I don't know whose car they potentially have me working on, but I
can tell you whose car it won't be. No, sir. You know what? I think you ought to work on your own car, or maybe your wife's car.
I want to drive home. I'm not. No, that's you let me.
Uber?
No, you let me work on somebody's car and then tell me, hey, give me a pat on the back, tell me I did a great job, and then when I leave, have them come back in there and fix all the mistakes I made.
Well, if it's a slow day in the service department, it sounds like you'll be able to spruce it up a little bit.
Yeah, so that's so we need to think about that with some of our other clients that we have on board here. I'm sure Painting and Decorating Foundation has
they would be a good one to start with.
Yeah. A bar back at Fast Eddie's, all that stuff. I mean, we can make this work, and we can we can find something to do over the next few months here on Claibs Online, because you know what? In the month of October, Claibs, we're not going to have Cardinal baseball to talk about anymore.
No, all of a sudden, college football will move to the front of the line. Blues hockey will be starting up, and we'll see what else will come by. But college football, as you know, the NFL, I don't really get into until September. By the way, did you see what happened with Dave Fleming from the
I
Giants?
did. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's something we ought to think about. I'm not advocating that the loser ends up being a bat boy, but the person who finishes in last place, there should be some sort of recognition for what they weren't able to do.
Right. That's fine with me. Yeah. If you missed it, Dave Fleming, the voice of the radio voice of the Giants, he finished last in fantasy football last year in whatever league it was. So he had to be the bat boy, the ball boy yesterday for only the first 3 innings.
Yeah, because he had to work the 4th inning.
Yeah, so he went back up to the booth, still in full bat boy uniform too.
Yeah. Now, see, here's the thing about being a bat boy. It's not just fetching balls for the umpire. You have to be in there rubbing up balls. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's a very challenging position. I think people think it's just kind of cool to sit out on the field. Those guys get there around 3 in the afternoon, and there's plenty of work to do. So I don't know if Flem did all of that, but just having him do his thing last night, I got a kick out of.
From the videos that they were showing and whatever they posted, it looked like he was working a lot harder than he expected to have to work down there. I don't know if he at one point he was like, wait, I got to go do that too. Like I got to be on top of it for that. So yeah, I think there were some times that he didn't quite get the full gist of the job when he was.
Well, he's got a clear idea about it now. That's for sure.
He does. Cardinals. It's got to be a rough stretch of the season, because not only it's been a rough season, it's been a tough season to watch, and now this is 2 series in a row where you're just getting nothing from the opponents either. Royals in one and A's in the next. I mean, at least you want somebody exciting to be in town, or somebody to look at on the other side and go, okay, you know what? That's a reason to watch right now. Royals and A's aren't giving you that.
No, they aren't. And I don't know if the Mets are going to give it to you either. But, one of the things, if there's a plus here, it gives the Cardinals a chance to get to 500 or work their way to it. Right now, they're 53 and 66, so they're 13 under. But, I know that's an internal mission for this ball club, is to try and get to 500 before the season is over with. So if you can fatten up on the A's and the Mets, you're going to see Pittsburgh here in the very near future. So you'd be trying to fight to make sure you get out of last place in the division. And there are a few other teams on the schedule that you might have to deal with. But overall, I think that it's your mini mission right now, and you got to take advantage of it. And you know what? The thing is with the Oakland A's, they've only won 33 games. But there are 33 teams that took them for granted, all right? And you have to make sure you're not 34 or 35. And because they have some interesting players, they just don't have enough players with legitimate experience, hence the reason why I think they've fallen off in the manner that they have. Right now, they're on course to lose 117 games.
Yeah, and that's at one point this year, didn't they have a 5 or 6 game win streak?
They did.
They went on a nice little run at one point in the year.
They won 7 in a row.
Yeah, and they still only have 33 on the season.
Yeah, so that tells you how bad it's been for them. But
right.
I think this is a team you had to put away early. You do not want to be looking at the 7th or 8th inning and seeing you're up by a run or down by 3, because who knows, that lightning might strike in a bottle. Although we've seen that this team has blown significant leads in the past, so it's one of those deals where you better put it on them early, take their mind out of the game, and just make sure you don't get hurt along the way.
I saw the stat last night that with when Gallegos came in and blew the save, it was the 25th time this year that the Cardinals had blown a save. The fact that that's top 5 and not number 1 was kind of surprising to me. That there are 3 or 4 other teams in baseball that have blown more saves than the Cardinals have this year. And I'm guessing their records are all probably similar to that of the Cardinals too.
Yeah, I would think so. Here's something that we ought to take into account. Baseball is talking about expanding and, relocation and things like that. We don't have enough pitching right now. Okay. So how do you think in 2 years or 3 years, whenever expansion comes about, Do you think pitching is going to be plentiful then? I mean, there are some teams that are flat out losing games because they don't have enough people who can throw strikes and get people out. And to say that you want to expand, I think is something they better step back and take a long, hard look at, and maybe emphasize developing pitching more. How you do that, I don't know, but I don't think any team should be saddled coming into a league and they have this and they have that and they just don't have enough pitching. So something needs to be done here in the next year or so. Uh, I don't want to say expand the roster because all you're doing is bringing up minor league guys who aren't ready. But I just don't think baseball can continue in this direction without trying to address an urgent need, that be it pitching.
I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot to put it on my notes for today. So Oakland, we know that Oakland is right now. I mean, they want to be in Vegas. That's where it seems like they will end up within the next 3 to 5 years. Is a team in Vegas, the Vegas A's or whatever you want to call them at that point. Kind of a surprise over the weekend. News coming out of Milwaukee that the Brewers might start looking for a new potential city to go live in. Did you expect that news to come out? Had you heard any rumblings of the fact that maybe Milwaukee wasn't a long-term home for them?
Well, I think all you had to do is look at the ballpark. I mean, they've done nothing to it since it's been open. I don't think the Brewers have much of a leg to stand on. If they think the city of Milwaukee, the state of Wisconsin, is going to shell out a lot of money, and the Brewers not contribute as well, they might as well call a moving van. Now, I don't know where they're going to move to. They're not an attractive team, but I don't think these city governments and states are interested in getting involved in reinvesting into ballparks or just stadiums as a whole without the involvement and investment of the team. This is where I think we made a big mistake. You know, the team is like, well, we got to have it. Hey, you making money? You throw something in too. And I think if you have somebody who's willing to do that, then maybe we can find some money because it is a good tax revenue generator. But at the end of the day, you can't solely put this on the shoulders of city government and state government.
Is this not where something like somewhere like Nashville would come into play?
I think Nashville has it set on a expansion team. But the other thing is this: they don't even have a ballpark yet. They haven't turned over one shovel of dirt to build one. So I don't know when Milwaukee's lease is up, but I think there's probably a few years left on it, and they're trying to get out in front on this. But I am not one that believes that teams should be holding cities hostage if they're not willing to make a contribution themselves.
It seems like if Vegas and Nashville are your two premier destinations to move a baseball team to, and Oakland is obviously not working, and if Milwaukee's popping up, I mean, that seems like a move. It stays in the Central, and then you figure out maybe what to do with Tampa at a certain point whenever that discussion comes up about a stadium.
Yeah, they got some work to do on off the field with regard to cities. And I think the other question is, what cities are really viable? You mentioned Las Vegas. You mentioned Nashville. I think I would agree with you on there. Is Tampa a better location than St. Petersburg? Well, the answer is yes. Montreal, is Montreal really viable? I say no. But there are some who feel like, yeah, we can get baseball back in Canada. I don't know. I don't think about that. I don't think that's going to work. Salt Lake City is trying to throw their hat into the sports arena. So I just don't know if you have enough cities to really make this interesting, without the ones I just mentioned. And, I think you have to look at the state of those cities' financial affairs on whether they can even house one. Now, it helps if you've already had a pro team. Like I mentioned, Salt Lake City, they've got the Jazz, but that's it. It also helps if you're the only game in town. So they have some things working to their advantage. Nashville is a growing city. I mean, it's hot. I'd kick the tires on Austin, Texas, but I think the Rangers and the Astros will have something to say about that. But overall, you just don't have as many venues as you think you do.
Yeah, and thinking. I mean, Orlando is that? I know Orlando was kind of in the running for it a few years ago. They put a plan in place, but you haven't heard much of it since then.
No, you haven't, and I think there's a few reasons why. Orlando, from a political standpoint, is kind of a little bit of a state of flux because of the Disney Ron DeSantis relationship. I think that's had a real eye opener for a lot of other entities who might want to go into a state that really is topsy turvy with regard to philosophy and what they want when it comes to government compared to what the patrons want. So, again, you have to look at the bigger picture and who's going to build a stadium.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? You don't have state taxes to draw from. I mean, you make a lot of money off of tourism. But at this point, with Disney's situation in a state of flux, I just don't know if that's going to work.
This is the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. A lot of off-field baseball talk. Let's take a quick 30-second break. When we come back, some of the on-field discussion to go over with the Cardinals and other teams around the league. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Holiday out to deep right. Yes, 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 he did it.
On Friday, August 18th, the Cardinals host the Mets, and that night, 25,000 fans aged 16 and older take home a Cardinals Hall of Fame car parade bobblehead thanks to Ford. Fans will be surprised at the gates when they receive one of two mystery bobbleheads. Will it be Matt Holliday or will it be Ted Simmons? Which one will you get? Find out August 18th. Get your tickets now at cardinals.com/promotions.
That's coming up this weekend. It's Hall of Fame weekend at Busch Stadium, as you will be on hand for all the stuff going on with the Mets come into town, and all the details for that. A lot of Cardinals coming back, a lot of former Cardinals coming back. It seemed like the list was pretty long for this year's festivities.
Well, I think it's for one of the reasons. I think it's Jose Oquendo.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about how many years he's been involved in the organization. You go back to the 80s, and there are guys he's played with. There's guys he's coached with. There's guys he's coached, guys he's coached that are coming back. So it's going to be a good turnout. Max Lanier is a whole different story. I mean, he's been gone for a while. And, there's some interesting debate about whether Max Lanier should be actual Cardinal Hall of Famer. He was a guy, for lack of a better correlation, there was a Mexican league, kind of like the Live Tour, who was trying to poach players from Major League Baseball. And Max Lanier was one of the guys who went. He tried to get Stan Musial to go, and Stan said no. And, there was some that kind of blacklisted Max Lanier after that. And there was some other social concerns that I think some people raised about Max Lanier and how he felt about people of color. So I was kind of taken by the fact that for a guy who had such a cloud over his head, he's going in the Cardinal Hall of Fame. Now, his son, Hal, was a really good person within the Cardinal organization as a manager in the minors and also a coach, third base coach for a number of years doing with Whitey Herzog. But we're talking about Max. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. They changed the format with regard to it's going to be Sunday morning instead of Saturday afternoon. The weather really had a lot to do with that over the last few years. I mean, it was oppressively warm, and it took its toll on some people. So they thought maybe if they do it in the morning, it might be a better situation. So we'll see.
Yeah. So the list of Cardinal Hall of Famers that will take part: Ozzie Smith, Tony La Russa, Ted Simmons, Scott Rowland, Keith Hernandez, Tom Herr, Vince Coleman, John Tudor, Ray Langford, Mark McGuire, Jim Edmonds, Jason Isringhausen, and Chris Carpenter. All
well, who do we forget?
Yeah,
Willie McGee will be there.
Yeah. Is Roland going to be there this weekend?
Yeah, Scott Rowland will be here. Yeah.
Okay, he'll be there. Have they mentioned anything? Has there been any news, or are we expecting any news on any more honors for Scott Rowland?
His plaque will be here. I haven't heard whether they're going to retire his number or not.
Okay.
I would think that would be the case.
Right.
But I'm not part of the selection committee. I just show up when I'm invited, and I let somebody else who is smarter than me on that regard handle that business.
Let's talk about a future Cardinal Hall of Famer, Adam Wainwright. This past weekend got hit hard again in Kansas City. The Cardinals management kind of got together, talked with him. They decided he's still going to make his next start. He's got about 6 weeks to get 2 wins, find 2 wins somewhere on there. And I know that's kind of what it seems like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get him to that magic number of 200 wins. But it's tough to watch right now with how he's out there pitching. And I think nobody feels worse about it than Adam Wainwright.
Well, you're right. It has been tough to watch. And I think for other reasons. The fact that, Adam, such a good guy. Everybody likes him. Hard worker, represent the organization well on and off the field, and you pull for him. But it's just not working. And I don't know what else he can do to turn this around. I mean, we've heard a lot of different reasons on why it hasn't been effective. And I think some of those reasons are falling on deaf ears. With that said, the Cardinals don't really have a lot of options because, we just lost another pitcher yesterday in Steven Matz. It's not like your farm system is loaded with these young arms that can come in and take over. So I don't know what the recourse is. You want to run Jake Woodford out there for 3 or 4 innings, perhaps. But, I just don't think that the Cardinals have as many vast options as one might think if you do want to shut him down. But, he's earned the right to go after it. I just think the problem that you run across is when you walk in the clubhouse and you see who's pitching, you have to say to yourself, we're going to need at least 8 runs tonight in order to be close.
Yeah.
And, as good as this offense has been, you just can't – it's not like you can put a quarter in a jukebox and just say, hey, go out and get 8 runs. We may need 9. There are a lot of things that go into that.
They could – I mean, Rammer on Daily Cards has discussed the possibility of putting him in the bullpen and maybe vulturing a few wins somewhere that way, even with an opener. As you mentioned, Woodford goes for 3, and then you bring Wainwright in, hoping that it's a situation where he can get a win that way.
Well, let me ask you this. What have you seen from him being a starter to coming out of the bullpen where his stuff is going to be different?
And that's the point I was going to make. Last night we saw in the game, Giovanni Gallegos came in, blew the lead, wasn't on top of his game. The next inning, the Cardinals come back, take the lead, and in baseball rules and what we know of the game, Giovanni Gallegos should have been the pitcher of record for that. But the official scorer listed Giovanni Gallegos as brief and ineffective and gave the win to Jojo Romero.
Well, I commend the official scorer. I don't necessarily agree with some of the scoring, but that decision I had no problem with.
Are you in regards to Jordan Walker in his triple last night?
Okay,
did you interview Walker after the game? I know he. Okay.
I did. The catchability rate percentage was 50%. Okay,
that's it.
So my point is, if you're a big leaguer and you have a 50-50 chance of making that play, it hits you in the glove, you can't come up with it. That's an error.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the only way a guy gets an error, unless the ball is hit directly to him, he doesn't have to move left or right, backwards or forward. He just drops it. That's the only way it seems like guys get errors. I mean, I think we're setting a record. We're going to catch up with Gehrig or Ripken as far as most consecutive games without having an error marked down for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that was. I mean, when you saw the replay of that over and over again, he had to cover a lot of ground. But as you said, I mean, that ball hit him in the hand. It wasn't off the tip of the glove. It wasn't, a diving play. He was on the run, and that ball hit him in the glove. That's got to be caught at a high school level if you're running and the ball hits you in the glove like that.
Yep.
Let alone the major leagues. So Wainwright not going to get a start against the 33-win Oakland A's. He'll have to do it against the Mets this weekend for his next opportunity to get win 199.
I got to tell you, we talk about the opener. I don't know how many pitches Waino threw. He threw a lot. So I was going to say maybe you bring him back tomorrow. But, maybe that's too soon considering how many pitches he threw on Saturday.
Yeah.
Or Friday.
Just, yeah. And at this point, just give him the full rest. And that way you're not having any kind of other issues, any kind of, I don't want to use the word excuse because I don't think Wainwright would go out and say like,
why
as
not?
an excuse.
He's used every other one.
As that. I just think he's
used every other excuse. So, here's something else that I think comes into play. If you run him out there against the Oakland A's, that's basically a slap in the face of the Oakland A's. Now, they could say, well, you guys have only won 33 games. We can slap you any way we want to. Yeah. But you know what? I think there comes a sense of professional responsibility that if you feel like you can run this guy out here who's been getting – I think teams are hitting like 340 off of him. You're going to run him out here so you can think you can sneak him a win because we're the A's?
Yeah.
That would not set a good tone as far as I'm concerned.
Outside of the Cardinals organization, Claibs, the Rays have a situation on their hands. Wander Franco, currently on the restricted list, did not make the trip with the team after reports came out of the Dominican Republic that he has been involved in a relationship with a 14-year-old. And I think since then, another possible relationship with a minor has come out since then. How does baseball go about gathering information on this? And what does, I mean, obviously, yes, if something is found to have happened, it's legal, the law takes over from there. But how does baseball kind of handle this going forward?
Well, I think the first step is the right one. Take him off the field until you get more evidence or more information. I don't want to say evidence because he hasn't been charged by anything. But I think you have to take him off the field just to reduce the distraction. Throw in the fact that your best pitcher's done for the year. Tampa's about to start bailing water. And this is a team that just had an incredible start. And now it looks like they're floundering. But I think baseball's got to make sure he's away from this. I think they need to be able to get down to the DR and ask some questions and look into this even more and see if this is real or not. Because I think we're messing with a guy's career, okay? Not just from a legal standpoint, but just as a human being. So you want to make sure you're careful. You want to make sure you're fair and objective. And I think one of the things I think is fair is for him not to be participating until we get more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take another break. When we come back, we'll get into more football discussion, a lot of baseball talk here in the first half hour of the show. It's the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. We are powered by Graybar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura, right here on ClaibsOnline.com.
Can Graybar help my electrical and datacom jobs be more productive?
Yep. Our supply chain services are designed to do just that.
Like job site services?
Yep. We deliver the products you need where and when you need them, no matter your industry.
What if I have technical questions?
Yep. Our specialists are top-notch.
Emergency support?
Yep. Even after hours.
They're a unicorn.
When you need to keep your projects productive and profitable, rely on Graybar to help you get the job done right. No unicorns required. Yep, Graybar does that.
It's the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe here on ClaibsOnline.com. And Claibs, later on this week, you'll be talking more baseball with Bob Nightingale on another episode of Good Nightingale, and also a little bit of golf with Nick Ragone of the Ascension Charity Classic. That is coming up. We're coming up on 3 weeks away from
3 weeks away from the event, and a lot of good things are going on with that. We'll have Nick on Thursday, as you mentioned, Bob Nightingale. As we're starting to see these teams try to put some distance between themselves and some of the other teams that are contending. So there's enough good stuff going on right now. And coming up soon, we'll have Huddle Up with Howard. We'll be talking some college football and certainly some NFL in just a bit.
Yeah, I need to get myself up to speed on the on the golf coming up here. And I believe I'm home that weekend, so I'm going to head out there and see a few of the rounds out there for the Ascension Charity Classic. I've never made it out there to one of those in the past, so this will be a good chance to go out there and watch some of the legends of golf out there as you and Nick talk about it each and every week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
As you mentioned, Huddle Up with Howard is making its return as well. The college football rankings, preseason rankings came out. Georgia, once again, number one as they go for a three-peat. But you got to play the first few weeks of games to see who's legit and who's.
Yeah, that's why I don't even talk about it. That's why I don't even talk about it, because nobody's playing anybody early. There's a few games and networks have tried to pay teams to participate in, but for the most part, it's just not what I call what the college football season is all about.
And that's with all of the potential realignment that we are seeing out and about, which, by the way, we talked about it at length last week. But since then, I believe Cal and Stanford are looking at joining the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, the ACC doesn't want them now.
Yeah, those are two schools that should be smart enough to not join a conference called the Atlantic Coast. They should see the geography there and maybe the renaming of that. But yeah, I at this point, I've seen a few different realignments kind of thrown out there of just saying, you know what, screw the conferences as they are. Here's what we should do, kind of a 64 team, whatever. This is your, these are your teams that can qualify for the playoffs, for the national championship, and then just kind of have it tiered from there. And I think, this whole thing might blow up in the next 6 years or so, to where maybe we don't have the SEC and we don't have the Big Ten, and it kind of just gets even more, we see more of a change than what we have right now.
I'm not going to go that far, and here's why. A, there aren't enough good teams. B, you talked about eliminating a lot of middle people who run these conferences, and they're not going out without a fight. So I think what you may see is you'll see these conferences stay under the same umbrella, but I think they're going to probably thin out the herd and make sure we have good competitive teams compared to some of the tackling dummies that you see out there right now. So there's a lot of work to be done. So, and I don't think you can pull it off in 1 year. You probably have to have everybody at the table, presidents, athletic directors, network marketing people. It should be a conglomerate of people who can shape this thing for the future. And I don't think you can just do it with college presidents. I think you have to have some pretty smart people who can tell them, how are we going to make even more money? And I think you have to have athletic directors to make sure that they remain a competitive balance. You probably ought to take a look at how you do NIL and transfer portal, which is the reason why they need to get out of the NCAA and come up with their own setup.
The first week of the season, as you mentioned, not a whole lot of great games there. I'm sure when Florida and Utah scheduled each other, I'm sure Florida thought they'd still have a pretty good program, but they've fallen on hard times over the past few years. You do have in that first week, which I know you and Howard will get to in the next few weeks, LSU, Florida State, and then week 2, Texas and Alabama. So those are kind of your early season ones to look at, as the Texas program will make their way to Bryant-Denny Stadium before they become a part of the SEC and learn what that's all about.
Well, they'll have a chance to go to the woodshed. So, and Texas is good. I'm not going to take anything away from them. They don't even know who their quarterback's going to be yet, but Sarkisian is a really good coach. He'll have something in store for Alabama when it's time to play. But he's just a little short on talent with regard to experience. But so is Alabama. They're bringing back not as many people as they've done in the past. So they'll be feeling each other out in that game.
Have you watched the Johnny Manziel documentary yet?
I have no interest in Johnny Manziel. I'm not going to watch it. I think Johnny Manziel got a pass in a lot of different ways. And to glorify a guy who was not that good, I'm good. I got too many other things I'm trying to watch.
Yeah, I just from the bits and pieces of it, I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing yet. From the bits and pieces of it, just so many mistakes at so many different levels from people who are getting paid a lot of money to make those decisions and make those calls. It's fascinating how many people screwed up with.
No, you're right. You're right. And all you have to do is, if you know the story, like many do, I guess the question is, why are we revisiting a guy who's just a guy? We find out that he wasn't this wealthy person that they perceived him to be. He's got people, faking heart attacks to make sure that he can pass a drug test. I mean, it's not worth my time.
On to the NFL preseason just started up this week. I know you said that you don't really follow much of what's going on in the NFL in the preseason. Should be noted, Dalvin Cook just signed a contract with the Jets, as we're seeing, I guess, as close to an NFL version of a all-star team of I'm trying to think what the NBA tries to do with the super teams. As Aaron Rodgers goes there, now you get Dalvin Cook. You're trying to put all these big personalities.
Ring chasers.
Yeah,
you're ring chasers.
You're trying to put all these big personalities and guys on one team, and man, it just never really does work out, no matter what sport you're playing.
Yeah, very seldom does it work out. That's for sure. We saw it work in Miami with the Heat. There have been some other teams. New England put a team together like that, and a lucky catch in a Super Bowl is the reason why they didn't have another ring. But overall, your point is valid. It's really hard to have all those moons and stars be aligned in order to win the championship. So we'll see what happens. It's also interesting to see former running back from Dallas is now going to be a New England Patriot, Ezekiel Elliott, a team that's needed a running game for forever. I don't know if he's enough because I don't know if their offensive line is good enough to block for him or anybody else.
Going into it, we talked about Dave Fleming earlier, finishing last in fantasy football. Those drafts are coming up in the next couple of weeks for a lot of people. How these teams are going to value that running back position this year. It's something you're not going to learn in preseason right now.
No.
And it's something that a lot of people are going to invest some money in that running back position, and they might be in for a long season with what they have.
Those people who do that probably are going to lose anyway.
Yeah,
if they think along that line. I think running backs are important, especially from November on. And if there's one standing around, you might be able to make some money off of them.
This past weekend in the preseason games, interesting thing happened with Mike Vrabel, the Tennessee Titans head coach. He did not coach in the game. The Titans were coached by Terrell Williams, one of their assistant head coaches. Mike Vrabel said, "You know what? I want this guy to get head coaching experience. I want him to get interviews, and I want him to get a head coaching job." There you go. Now he's going to go into an interview and he can say, I had experience in this game. What do you think of what Mike Vrabel did for his assistant?
Well, I think it's commendable that a coach would do something owners wouldn't do. And, we need more Mike Vrabels. He understands how challenging this is for a person of color to get a legitimate whiff at a head coaching job. So for Mike Vrabel to do that, I tip my cap to him. Hopefully some other coaches will be inspired to do it as well. But it really starts at the top with ownership as far as them having a comfort level, which they apparently don't have, and why we don't see more people of color that are head coaches. We have all the coordinators you can ask for. But as far as being the head guy, they come up with every excuse on why they don't get hired. But we all know that it has more to do with color than qualifications.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's been about a week and we haven't seen another head coach do this yet.
Well, some coaches aren't in a position to do it because they're trying to figure out their team.
Yeah.
And they're trying to just figure it out. And there's a time and place for it. There's no doubt about that. Maybe you see more coaches say, we're going to turn over mini camp to you or training camp to you. And you run us through the squad meetings and things of that nature. And you sit in the room when we start to draft players. Maybe that's a direction you might want to look at.
Coming up, as you mentioned, we have Huddle Up with Howard coming up in a bit. And then also this weekend, the Walk in a Fairway with Nick Ragone, talking about the Ascension Charity Classic, and Bob Nightingale with Good Nightingale. All of those brought to you by our friends Claibs at Fast Eddie's Bon Air.
Fast Eddie's Bon Air over in Alton, Illinois. Coldest beer, peel and eat shrimp, Fat Eddie burgers. Always something to do. A lot of live entertainment virtually every night. And if you're looking for something to do different, if you want to make it a date night or whether you want to hang out with the buddies and sit back and have a few cold ones while you take in some football or some Cardinal baseball, this is a place to go. They've been there for a long time. They own the street. You can't miss it. It's at the foot of the bridge in Alton, Illinois. Swing by and look for Fast Eddie. He's there normally, and he'll make sure you have a good time. The only thing he asks you to be is over 21.
He is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. We will be back in 30 seconds to wrap up today's show. It is the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show, powered by Graybar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura here on ClaibsOnline.com.
The Legends of Golf return to St. Louis in 2023. You won't want to miss one of the strongest fields in golf. Ernie Els, Steve Stricker, Bernhard Langer, John Daly, and many more when they compete for the 2023 Ascension Charity Classic title, September 5th through the 10th at historic Norwood Hills Country Club. All proceeds benefit area charities. Together, we were able to donate over $1 million to those most in need last year. Visit AscensionCharityClassic.com.
Final few minutes here of the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show, powered by Graybar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. Claibs, the NBA Hall of Fame, inducted a few new members this past weekend. Pretty good class. Tony Parker, Pau Gasol, Dirk Nowitzki, Greg Popovich all go in to the basketball. I'm sorry, not the NBA Hall of Fame, the
Basketball
basketball
National
Hall of Fame. Yes.
Right. Becky Hammond goes in as well.
What are your thoughts on current coaches going into the Hall of Fame, as we saw with Greg Popovich, and we see it with a lot of basketball? I think is the main sport you see that with.
Well, I think their body of work has already been established. Maybe Greg Popovich wins again. Who knows? But I don't really have a problem with it. All the guys that go in have already established their footprint with regard to their impact in the league. This isn't some young fledgling guy who, still has some coaching in front of him, a whole lot of coaching. I think they've done it the right way. And I thought the speeches were very meaningful. Becky Hammond's speech about Greg Popovich was very touching. Dwayne Wade chronicled his career, his life. That was very good. Paul Gasol talked about there's still things for him to do on this planet. I really thought of all the Hall of Fame speeches we've seen over the last month or so, these players and coaches probably were the most meaningful. Gene Katie, he was there. And I mean, it was very touching. I didn't cry as much as I do at the NFL Hall of Fame, but this is that time of the year where I do get emotional. Baseball doesn't do anything for me. I mean, those guys, and I'm happy for them. But man, it's something about the NBA and or the basketball and certainly the NFL that just really stands out. Have you
been to the Basketball Hall of Fame?
I've been I've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Basketball Hall of Fame. So I've been to all four.
The only Hall of Fame that I have ever been to is the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's the only one of the four. That was up in Toronto last July for Cardinals Blue Jays. I mean, it's right there, and I think that's just because it's in a major city that it was right there, and went to that. Have not been to any of the other three. And
well, the other three are harder to get to in Toronto.
And that's kind of I would say my excuse for it is just why I've been to the hockey one of all the four. Claibs also, James Harden had comments over the weekend about his current GM, Daryl Morley. And just that is...
You know what I would do if I'm Daryl Morley? You don't want to play? Just stay at home because we're not going to pay you.
Yeah.
I would just let him sit. I would not give him the pleasure and distinction of being traded because he doesn't trust him. If there's anybody who's got a credibility issue, it's James Harden. He's a basketball cancer. I mean, he's a ring chaser. If he doesn't like it his way, look at all the situations. How he and Kyrie Irving are the same person. Wherever they leave, it's always in shambles. So to hell with him. Let him stay at home.
Yeah,
what's he gonna do?
Or I mean, I would just say trade him to a rival.
No. I wouldn't trade him at all. You know what I do? I trade him to a team that's got a good chance to be in the lottery next year. Now, who is that?
Oh, you're saying to get their pick?
No, I would say, look, you can have him. We just want to bury his ass.
Yeah.
And then he won't report. And you know what? Then you suspend him because he's not, giving you a professional effort. And let him rot. I don't care. I mean, you can't let guys continue to do this. And by the way, Adam Silver came out with an edict recently when Damian Lillard said he wanted to be traded. He said, you can't say that anymore. So we'll see what the league does on that front.
Are you surprised Lillard hasn't been traded yet?
No. He's backed his team into a corner as the Miami Heat. And while he thinks he's a good player, I think he's a very good player. I don't know how he helps that team because they need some other things other than another guy who can score.
A lot going on this week here on Claibs Online. As we mentioned, we have the shows coming up, plus everything that you have this weekend with the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And on Thursday, Claibs, you have a big interview with Big E of the WWE. He'll be out at Busch Stadium. I would imagine throwing out the first pitch. I'm sure Ben Boyd's lined all that up for him, and he'll be doing that. And you get to talk to him before then as well.
I'm looking forward to it. I understand he's a pretty effective wrestler, or at least he was before he was injured. So I'm looking forward to talking to him about that and what's next in his career.
They asked me to come out there too. They emailed me. We're gonna have some tickets to give away on Claibs Online to the upcoming show in October. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it out there for that, but I have talked to Biggie a few times. You're gonna have fun talking to him. He's an entertaining guy.
I'm gonna have fun no matter what. So
you will have
it's
fun
up to
with
him
that.
to keep up.
With a Hall of Fame weekend being this weekend, what do you guys have for the show Friday night?
Ray Langford, we know will be there, and you never know if Scott Rowland is in the house. We might have him as well. And Jose Oquendo has been extended an invitation also.
Awesome. I would say with that being Hall of Fame weekend, I imagine that's going to be one heck of a show live at Lowe's on Friday nights. And then we'll have all the whatever content we get from me climbing the pole for Ameren, Illinois tomorrow. I'll be doing that.
Can't wait.
I'm sure you can't because you're the one not doing it. So I'm sure you're real excited.
Well, you know what?
Involved.
I know you'll do an admirable job.
You know what? I'll do as much as I can physically. As much as I'm physically able to do, I'll get it done for
you go
for them. All right. This has been another edition of the Ameren Illinois Lunch Show with Claibs and Joe. We're powered every week by Graybar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. He is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. Until next time, right here on ClaibsOnline.com.
So what made you get involved in this program? I mean, you had multiple options, I'm sure, but what made you think that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, I wasn't quite sure what kind of career path I wanted to take at the time, and I heard about the Painters Union and all the great things about it. Basically, they put you through this apprenticeship. It's a 4-year apprenticeship, and they teach you everything you need to know about the trade. So it was pretty hard for me to pass up once I heard that.
Well, I think mostly it was just knowing that, you know, they're here to protect you, the union is, and knowing that I was going to be able to take my time to learn. It wasn't going to be one of those things where they're forced to, day one, jump right into it. And I think once I figured that out, I mean, I love the opportunity to grow, and I think that that's the best thing for